Hello, welcome back here into Caden's Weather Center. Today is August 18, 2025. We're continuing to pay attention to the tropics. We have a tropical wave that is expected to possibly form as we head into later this week and even into this weekend with a possible invest here in the next couple of days. As well as paying attention to Hurricane Erin already posing a threat to the east coast of the United States, having a little bit more of a westward kind of pull. We'll talk about that later on in this video as well, but right now our main concern, North Carolina and really the east coast of the United States needs to get prepared here for that high rip currents, and the wave heights are expected to be pretty big, and that is why we have already counties now in North Carolina already putting out mandatory evacuations due to Hurricane Erin there. We also have a slight severe weather risk today in the northern part of the United States. We're going to dig deep into that as well at the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned. So let's just kind of jump right into it. What are we looking at here around the United States? Well, we can obviously see there's some rain, some thunderstorms continuing on over here in southern Wisconsin. That does include Madison, Wisconsin. Minneapolis, you're getting some rainfall as well, but we also have some storms kind of continuing on over here in eastern Kansas. That's eventually kind of just going to sit there, and then it will eventually make its way off to the east here, and we're kind of going to see that severe weather threat kind of ramp up later today. You can see some scattered thunderstorms and showers continuing on through parts of southwestern Michigan heading into Indiana. And then you can see a little bit of that scattered showers, thunderstorms once again off of the coast of Florida as well. But our main focus obviously is going to be the tropics in this video. That is our main focus. We have a lot of tabs here to get through, so we're going to get through them here pretty soon. So let's talk about right now the Atlantic. What are we looking at? Well, this is as of 11 a.m. here on Monday. We can clearly see tropical wave expected to continue to move off to the west, and once it gets into this orange zone, more chances of development as it will be in more favorable environment, less wind shear, warmer water temperatures. We'll have the possibility of forming a system right and possibly right behind Erin. Now the big question obviously is, does it go out to sea, or do we see it possibly head more off to the west and impact the United States? Models have been shifting back and forth, specifically the GFS model. We've been really paying attention to that one very, very closely with this next storm. Erin kind of having a little bit more of a westward push, but expected to still make that north turn here. We're going to be expecting that. Yesterday was moving northwest, so a little bit more north, but now it's moving west-northwest this morning, which is bringing it more to the west, and that could be bringing obviously some more conditions here to the east coast of the United States. So taking a look here at the IR satellite, what are we kind of looking at right now from the Atlantic? Well, we know that there's only two areas of really our biggest concern, and we obviously know Hurricane Erin's one, but then you have the tropical wave that's sitting right over here back in the MDR, and that's going to make its way obviously off to the west here. We're going to see that storm make its way to the west into a more favorable environment. But then we know Hurricane Erin is going to eventually make its way up to the north here, and the closer that he gets, we're expecting it to really start to ramp up here for the east coast, and we know that. East coast of Florida, your wave heights are expected to really start to ramp up as we head into tomorrow morning, and then, once it starts making its way up to the north, we're going to start seeing it a lot more here on the east coast of those wave heights really starting to ramp up as well, especially as Hurricane Erin is expected to grow in size. Now, taking a look here at the Atlantic, the true color satellite here, you can clearly see Hurricane Erin looking very, very well there this morning as a Category 4 hurricane now. Did re-strengthen from a Category 3 to a Category 4. Then we can see obviously that tropical wave that's still kind of continuing on. A very broad area kind of right there. I wouldn't say it's any closed center or anything like that. But Hurricane Erin, obviously we know, is a very strong storm right now impacting parts of the Bahamas and region right over there. We could see that Dominican Republic, Haiti, you guys are getting some impacts as well from Hurricane Erin, and definitely bringing in some of that surf, as well as the beaching conditions are not the absolute best, but even bringing in some possible, heavy amounts of rainfall at some times with that. We don't have a radar site over there, so it's a little bit harder to tell with that. Taking a look here at the 11 a.m. advisory, Hurricane Erin, 140 mile an hour hurricane right there, so that is Category 4 strength, west-northwest here at 10 miles an hour, so it's starting to really slow down as it's going to start eventually making way for that northern turn there, as it's going to find that break and it's going to go through the north. Expecting a major hurricane to continue until really Thursday morning. That's when we're expecting it to possibly just get back down to a Category 2 before it races off to the northeast. And by Saturday, we're expecting a Category 1 hurricane there up in the North Atlantic. Obviously, we will have to see on where the storm heads. Could we see a tropical storm later, or earlier, or even later? We'll have to be paying attention to that. But obviously, once it's out here, no more big concerns for anyone. But the biggest question obviously is right now, does it go on the more western side of the cone or the more eastern side of the cone here? Big questions are still on the table here for Hurricane Erin at that time. Now, taking a look, tropical storm warnings, tropical storm watches continue on over here for the islands. We're continuing to see that as tropical storm conditions are already being seen in several areas at this morning, really, and that's going to continue on for the next couple of hours, and then we'll eventually continue to make its way off to the north eventually here. The big question, obviously, is that everyone has, is when does that turn happen, and that's what we're paying attention to mostly, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and following the local National Hurricane Center as well for, updates. They do it at 11 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 p.m., and 5 a.m. Those are your big four updates there. But they also do intermediate advisories of, 8 a.m., 2 p.m., kind of the same as the National Hurricane Center, just updating the whole Atlantic tropical outlook. So taking a look here at the wind speed probabilities, what are we looking at? Well, obviously this pink area right here is not impacting anyone too much on land at this time, which is some good news because that is a 100% chance here of pretty much tropical storm force winds. Now you can see the coast here of North Carolina does get into that 10-20% chance here. And kind of the same here for Bermuda. Now, depending obviously on the track, if it shifts more west, the chances could go up a little bit more. As well as, if it goes more to the east, Bermuda, you could get a little bit more as well. Now, that does include maybe even parts of, southeastern Virginia as well. But really, this doesn't mean you're going to get tropical storm conditions. Now, that can't rule out a possible maybe... obviously the waves are going to be pretty big with this storm as it continues to get closer. But the biggest thing is are we going to be seeing any rainfall from it? Well, once again, that all depends on how close the system is as well. So taking a look right now here at this, we can see the rip currents for today, not much going on. We have, obviously the rip currents are going to start picking up here on the east coast of Florida. We have some rip currents continuing on in the northeast as well, but that's not due to Hurricane Erin. Heading into tomorrow, you can see majority of the east coast here of the United States, as Hurricane Erin will be somewhere in this general area. That's going to be majority of these the east coast states here. We're going to see it all the way from Virginia all the way down here into Florida. Those surf is going to continue to ramp up at that time. In Puerto Rico, and even the Dominican Republic probably having some pretty big waves as well, but Puerto Rico expecting to have some of the high rip currents as well, and that's why right now and over here for the next couple days, if you live on the East Coast or anything, surfing is not going to be safe. Same with just being on the beach is not going to be as safe at this time. Probably wait maybe about 4 days, and then stuff will start to calm down as, Erin will continue to move off to the northeast. But taking a look at that, you can see some storms still bringing them off to the northwest here, some bringing it more up to the north. So we still have a little bit of kind of a spread here with the models trying to figure out exactly where that location's going. He's wobbling a lot, or Hurricane Erin wobbling a very good amount there, and that's something we need to continue to pay attention to as Hurricane Erin, if it wobbles more to the west, that could bring a little bit more of a westward track and possibly impact more of the east coast here of the United States, which is big questions, still all over the table. That is our biggest thing that, we've been talking about over here for days. Right now, taking a look here at this, the intensity guidance, we can obviously see the National Hurricane Center expecting it maybe to strengthen just slightly here in the next 24 hours. No other model is agreeing with the National Hurricane Center there. All models definitely are going to be bringing this system down, especially as it starts to head more into the northern Atlantic, where stuff obviously isn't as favorable and the water temperatures are definitely a lot cooler. But speaking of the water temperatures, you can clearly see, look how warm the Gulf is. That is for sure. So that's why we could be also worried about this next system here. The Caribbean, not as warm as it is usually. I mean, it is a little bit above average, but the Gulf, I mean, look at this. You can see these little areas right off here. You can see Texas, Louisiana coast. That's 32 degrees Celsius right here. And then you can even see it off the west coast of Florida, 32 degrees Celsius right there. Very, very warm waters, and that is definitely what hurricanes love to strengthen in. So that's something that we need to continue to pay attention to closely with that. Now, GFS model run. Here, let's take a look here at the GFS. We can clearly see 954 millibars. So the GFS, here in the next 6 hours, expecting maybe a little bit of, weakening with this storm here. Expected to strengthen maybe slightly once again here as we head into the next 12, 18 hours out. Then we'll continue to get pulled to the north. Now that's when the storm's going to really gain its size here. Maybe not its strength, but size definitely before it gets pulled off to the northeast here. Now this is the most recent GFS model run, and we can obviously see that the GFS is coming out now. You can see very strong storms going to get pretty close to the Carolinas there. If this keeps pushing west, more impacts obviously, but we'll pay attention to that. And that will eventually make its way off to the northeast here, going between Bermuda and Carolinas there. That's what we're going to pay attention to. But then we have this tropical system right here that could possibly move off to the northwest here from the GFS run. Now, it's been really consistent over here over the last couple of runs, and maybe even last night. A couple, those last two runs from last night has been really consistent of this tropical system going over the Dominican Republic, maybe even Puerto Rico, as well as parts of eastern Cuba, and that is something that could limit development very, very well on this storm. Now, you can take a look here at the 12Z GFS model run. We could clearly see 1,002 millibars going over the Dominican Republic, and then it continues to move off to the northwest here, and that is going to weaken the system as it heads over that, big environment, the terrain's there. But now we're seeing a little bit more of a central Florida, like kind of like an Irma track there with this storm. So the GFS now, I will say, if you do live in Florida, do not be too focused on this storm right now. It is too far out. Now, I will say that earlier this morning, the storm was going out to, more north of sea. Last night, we saw GFS bringing it up the east coast here of Florida, as well as yesterday, we saw a little bit more of west coast of Florida and even in the northwestern Gulf. So there's still so much time that we could be seeing. But the GFS now, couple model runs here bringing it into Florida, but don't start panicking or anything yet too far out. I mean, we are talking about 240 hours out right now, or I'm sorry, 210 hours out, so still very far time. But that kind of takes track of Irma here. You can see goes up through the west coast of Florida and then goes through to the northern part of Florida here. So the GFS could be something to pay attention to with that. And I believe that rainfall, if the GFS was correct, would bring some pretty heavy amounts of rainfall to the East Coast. But once again, do not settle just on that track, because that is not a forecast at all, and so much could change. Taking a look at the European model, expecting the storm to strengthen very, very strong once again here. 919 millibars here in the next 18 hours before, as it starts making that turn, it's going to slow down in that environment. Really is going to start to get bigger, obviously. We're starting to realize that. The GFS model there, kind of agreeing with the European model there with the strength and possibly even the size of the system. That's going to race off to the northeast. Once again, mostly going to be paying attention to that track. It's just going to, the biggest thing is how close does it get to the Carolinas. After it passes Carolinas, the storm will not be talked about as much. But taking a look at this tropical system right here, the European 1,007 millibars right there, hasn't been necessarily bringing it close to the United States, has it kind of following Erin. Now, I will say, though, that if this next system does follow Hurricane Erin, that will be a little bit, maybe not even a formation, but mostly it will be something that doesn't even form into something strong, because Hurricane Erin has really mixed up those cold, cooler waters now here in the Atlantic, and that's going to cause this storm obviously not to get the environment it needs to rapidly intensify. Now, if it goes more to the south here and goes into the Caribbean, nothing's gone through the Caribbean to kind of mess with those waters or the environment there, so that could lead some pretty big development there. So that's why it's big questions still on the table. The GFS obviously possibly bringing in a Category 1-2 hurricane into South Florida, but obviously the Euro has been really consistent on pulling the storm to the north, as well as the Euro AI, so that's something to continue to pay attention to as well. But you take a look here at the probabilities right here for the Euro models. We can clearly see over here over the 9,644-hour mark, pretty good chances still continuing to rise up over here over the islands here over Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. Then we see as we head into 120, 168 hours out, 144 to 192 hours out. So still, once again, this is next Tuesday, we start to see a little bit more of that spread. So we have, chances, the higher chances are kind of in between the Bahamas, maybe even the Dominican Republic, as well as Cuba, and we have even Puerto Rico is in there as well. Haiti, you guys could be paying attention to this as well, but taking a look at that, majority of that, it spreads out. Definitely a big spread over here from the European and probabilities of a tropical depression, but majority of those chances do go out to sea, and that's kind of what we've been seeing, obviously, very consistently with the European model run, at least. And here are the ensembles here from the 00Z this morning. You can clearly see some storms do go off to the west here and possibly impact the United States, but the good news is, as of right now, that the majority of these models, according to the Euro, are going to kind of get pulled up to the north, and you can obviously see some of those Euro ensembles getting pretty close to the Carolinas here, maybe a little bit more of an eastward push than we saw yesterday here with Hurricane Erin, but still, once again, Hurricane Erin is going to be a very strong system, but obviously if the storm gets more off to, not where Erin was, we could be seeing another tropical system that could be pretty strong as well. Now, I will say, compared to yesterday, the Euro ensembles have really pushed more down to the south here for our next tropical wave. They haven't really gone up to the north now, but they still are expecting it to pull to the north, but A little bit more of a southern push here, just north of the Dominican Republic and Cuba and Puerto Rico as well. So no matter what, regardless of that development, we could be seeing some pretty big rainfall chances there. Now, tomorrow's video, we're going to see an update from this because it will be Tuesday. So we're going to take a look right now here on this. August 20th to 26th, we're obviously expecting that tropical development somewhere, and that's kind of what that marked wave is right there. And then we head a little bit farther into this week, August 27th through September 2nd, where we are kind of seeing a little bit more of that tropical development. But obviously, our big question is going to be what it comes out tomorrow, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit. Now, we're in the middle of August, so we still have a long road up and we still have a long road down. So something to pay attention to as we go on over here. Obviously, throughout the next 2 months, 3 months, that's going to be our biggest thing for hurricane season. So we want to pay attention to that one very, very closely because we know that we still have so much more left in the hurricane season right now. Right now, let's take a look a little bit of the severe weather side of this today. We could clearly see South Dakota going into Nebraska and Kansas, slight weather risk for you guys, as well as in parts of Wisconsin and even into northern Illinois as well with the marginal risk. Other places kind of around that, even stretching all the way into Colorado for that marginal risk as well. But slight weather risk in these two areas, you kind of can see the tornado chances really are going to be in, a possible tornado cannot be ruled out here in Wisconsin and Illinois. We had a couple tornadoes actually in Iowa last night. That were actually on the ground, but we're going to talk about that. 2% chance there for the tornado threat there in Wisconsin and Illinois. The wind chances are going to be in both systems here, but then the hail will be on the western side of the system there, so that's kind of what we're paying attention to now. Heading into the HRRR model, we can obviously see scattered showers, thunderstorms really starting to start. Will ramp up a lot more this evening, and that's kind of that severe weather risk that we're going to be seeing, and that's kind of where that is right there. And you can kind of see 8 p.m. tonight, we could be seeing some of those bigger storms right there. As well as down here, you kind of see, whoopsies, there we go. You kind of can see that severe weather could be starting to form up down there. And that's not going to be as severe once again as up here. But once again, we're not having any major severe weather outbreak or anything like that. But if you enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching this video today. Thank you for just tuning in, keeping, an alert on this channel. I appreciate all of you guys for every support that you guys have given me, as well as make sure you're following your local National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center as well, because that is really where you want to get your weather information from, mostly there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you follow my X page down in the description down below. I'll be posting frequent updates here on Hurricane Erin, the next tropical wave, as well as the severe weather threat that is continuing on over here in the northern United States. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a little bit of a long one, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, and bye-bye.